This conference will now be recorded.
Six o'clock. All right, ready?
I'm gonna bring it down a little so I can see it.
All right, welcome everybody. We're going to call this meeting to order. If I could ask everybody, please stand and remain standing. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, ladies and gentlemen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Caldwell, would you honor us with an invocation, please?
Dear most gracious Heavenly Father God, as we have this last meeting of this year, 2023, we thank you for the year. We thank you for us getting through the year and how well everything has gone overall, dear Lord. We pray that you will bless all here, this town, in the upcoming year, dear Lord, not only as well as you have in 2023, but even better, dear Lord. Just watch over all here. Let this be a blessed and wonderful event this evening, and let your will be done in all ways. In Jesus' holy and precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. As you would remain standing, we have a moment of silence for some of the neighbors we lost this past month, which is Bill LaValle, Wendy Gray, and former Commissioner Charlie Wilton. Thank you so much. Please be seated. Good to see everybody. And if you would take this moment to either cut your cell phones off or cut the ringers down. I'm sure you all have some wonderful cell phone ringers. And at this time, I'll ask the board if there is anyone that has a conflict of interest or anything on the agenda, please make it known now. If not, we're going to move on to the adoption agenda with certain changes. We're going to move item number 8 and 9 to 15A and B. And we're going to add Girl Scout lease agreement conversation at 19A. And I would love to have a motion to accept that agenda with those noted changes.
Motion to adopt with noted changes.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Thanks, sir. Next up is public comment. Do we have anybody sign up to speak?
No, sir. Jake McAllister.
Jake McAllister.
Hold on, Jake.
Hang on just a second, Jake. We'll get you a microphone so you can be heard, sir.
I speak up, no worries.
Well, this is for posterity.
Yes, sir.
And the internet. Go right ahead.
All right, thank you. My name is Jake McAllister. I'm a proud Cape Carteret resident. I've had the privilege of serving our community both in the public school system and the United States Coast Guard. And I'm coming to you today as an inaugural member of the Carteret County Coast Guard Community Association. I want to tell you a quick blurb about who we are and what we're planning to do. Carteret County is one of only 4 counties in the nation to earn the designation of a certified Coast Guard community. The Coast Guard is a well-respected organization that is supported and celebrated by many here on the Crystal Coast. Since the year 1790, the United States Coast Guard has evolved into a very dynamic and responsive organization upheld by active duty, reserve, auxiliary members, and who are dedicated to 11 statutory missions. Since the Homeland Security Act of 2002, the Coast Guard's missions include coastal security, drug interdiction, aids navigation, search and rescue, living marine resources, marine safety, defense readiness, migrant interdiction, maritime environmental protection, polar ice operations, and law enforcement through a spirit of honor, respect, and devotion to duty. The Coast Guard has an incredibly large footprint within a very small organization and has been instrumental to our way of life here on the Crystal Coast. We are in great debt to those who have served our community during both fair and foul times in our country's history. As a designated United States Coast Guard community, Carteret County celebrates the service and sacrifice of the men and women of the Coast Guard, active duty, reserve, retired, auxiliary, and their families. The purpose of the Carteret County Coast Guard Community Association is to support our county's efforts to champion the Coast Guard. We intend to serve as an ongoing vehicle for support programs, activities, and celebrations to lift up our Coast Guard stakeholders here in Carteret County. As our organization grows, we want to join you in continued efforts to uplift our Coast Guard community through awareness of the Coast Guard, celebrating veterans and retirees, assisting with growing the fleet through recruiting, and supporting current service members, auxiliaries, and their families. We also invite any Coast Guard members, veterans, retirees to come join our association as well. Thank you. I just wanted to give a little blurb about our new organization here in Carteret County, and we're excited to do some great things for the Coast Guard. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it? Okay, thank you very much. And I did want to recognize some of the dignitaries we have. Mr. Raker, here's Clerk of Court. Celeste Carnes, our representative state, thank you for being here. And Floyd Messer, our friend from across the bridge. Thank you all for being here. And former Mayor Fowler and his wife, thank you guys. And it's a big crowd, so glad everybody be here. So moving right along, we're going to recognize two of our commissioners who are leaving. And I want to start off with Don Miller. We have a little presentation for Don. You don't have to get up if you don't want to. He's like me, he can get down. It's getting up part. It's tough. This is a nice little, if I hold it right, in commemoration of your time and duty to our wonderful town of Cape Carteret. And thank you so much for
Thank you.
8 years of your valuable time.
Thank you.
And next up is Jeff Waters. Jeff, this is for you, sir. Commemorating your 4 years. You're spending your time and your valuable time for this board, and we appreciate it. Thank you on behalf of the town.
I appreciate it.
Pardon me, I'm gonna move this plan. And thank you, Mrs. Holt, for the poinsettias. We appreciate it. Now I can see. And you can see me. I know I say this all the time, but you know, nothing is more important than our time, and for people to take their time and serve their community and their town. And it's the most selfless thing you can do, really, especially on the small scale like our little town. So thank you, gentlemen, once again. Thank you, current board members, and thank you for the ones that have ran and are getting ready to be sworn in tonight. And with that, that's what's coming up. We're going to install some people right now. So first, we're going to do the oath of office. We'll start with Courtney Barnhill. Center stage, sir.
Yeah, that's what I'm headed.
And thank you for being here, Ken.
That's no problem, glad to do it. Left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Courtney Barnhill,
I, Courtney Barnhill,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support
I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
and obey the laws
and obey the laws
of the United States of America
of the United States of America
and the state of North Carolina,
and the state of North Carolina,
that I will,
that I will,
in all respects,
in all respects,
observe the provisions
observe the provisions
of the Charter
of the Charter
and ordinance
and ordinances
of the town of Cape Carteret,
of the town of Cape Carteret,
and will faithfully
and will faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of the office of Commissioner.
of the office of Commissioner.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hey, where you going? Where you going? Come on. Yeah, don't worry, we'll get there. You may want to leave later, but right now you got to. Next up, John Ritchie.
I didn't get instructed.
Hey there. Left hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand. Left hand.
I'm not good at instructions,
I
you
know.
got pictures.
You're amphibious, right?
That's right.
I, John Ritchie,
I, John Ritchie,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support
I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
and obey the laws of the United States
and obey the laws of the United States
of America
of America
and the state of North Carolina,
and the state of North Carolina.
that I will,
I will,
in all respects,
in all respects,
observe the provisions
observe the provisions
of the Charter
of the Charter
and ordinances
and the ordinances
of the town of Cape Carteret,
of the town of Cape Carteret.
and I will faithfully
I will faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of
of
the office of Commissioner.
the office of Commissioner.
Congratulations, Bill.
Thanks.
Oh.
Over here too.
All right, next up is Cameron Watts.
One more.
It's fine, we're good.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
You said you can take pictures?
Okay, just these.
Hold that thing up, because I don't really. There you go, you're doing a great job.
Left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. I, Cameron Watts,
I, Cameron Watts,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
and obey the laws
and obey the laws
of the United States of America
of the United States of America
and the state of North Carolina,
and the state of North Carolina,
that I will,
that I will,
in all respects,
in all respect,
observe the provisions
observe the provisions
of the Charter
of the Charter
and ordinances
and ordinances
of the town of Cape Carteret,
of the town of Cape Carteret,
and I will faithfully
and I will faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of the office of Commissioner.
of the office of Commissioner.
Congratulations, bud.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Will.
I guess I'm last. I'll borrow that. Thank you so much.
Left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand.
Thank you.
I, Will Baker,
I, Will Baker,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
and obey the laws
and obey the laws
of the United States of America
of the United States of America
and the state of North
and
Carolina,
the state of North Carolina,
that I will,
that I will,
in all respects,
in all respects,
observe the provisions
observe the provisions, pardon me,
of the Charter
of the Charter
and ordinances
and ordinances
of the town of Cape
of
Carteret,
the town of Cape Carteret,
and I will faithfully
and I will faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of the office of mayor.
of the office of mayor.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Let's see. A little break now, right?
I do.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Got everything under my computer.
I'd like
All
to
right,
make a
thank you,
motion.
Kim, once again.
Can I make that motion? Okay.
Let me announce it first,
Okay.
and then you can make a motion. How's that?
Ready?
All right, next up on the agenda is the selection for the mayor pro tem. And would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I'd
Okay.
like to make a motion to appoint Commissioner Martin to serve as mayor pro temp with a term of 2 years.
Okay, and do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? All right, all opposed? Congratulations, Steve. And now we'll swear Commissioner Martin in as mayor pro tem.
Where'd Ken go?
He's coming, he's coming.
Thanks.
Yes, ma'am. All right, thank you. Ready? I, Steve Martin,
I, Steve Martin,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
and obey the laws
and obey the laws
of the United States of America
of the United States of America
and the state of North
and
Carolina,
the state of North Carolina,
that I will,
that I will,
in all respects,
in all respects,
observe the provisions
observe the provisions
of the Charter
of the Charter
and ordinances
and ordinances
of the town of Cape Carteret,
of the town of Cape Carteret,
and I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties
the duties
of the office
of the office
of Mayor Pro Tem.
of Mayor Pro Tem.
Congratulations, Steve.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thought you were going to ask him to kiss him. All right, so everybody, congratulations to the new board, and we're going to take a brief break right now, so get out, mingle. So congratulate our winners and take this opportunity to thank our previous board members and our guests who are here today. Thank you. About 10, 15 minutes.
Thanks, how are you? Nice to meet you. Hopefully, yeah, we'll need it, won't we? Nice to meet you. Thank you, same here. Who knew it?
Saving matters.
I know, we got to get together.
This conference will now be recorded.
I have to remind you, and you have to remind me.
So you on,
Well, I
do you follow this?
try to. What I normally do is like Heather will give you a
This here?
yeah. So this is very. Yeah, so that's this. Lisa, he added that over.
Recording. All right, if everybody will make their way to their seats, we're going to resume our meeting.
What's wrong?
Is that on? We got somebody,
Is your eye blind?
hey Brad, if you can hear me, cut your mic off.
Both eyes?
Cut it off, Brad.
It's okay, Brad. Good to talk to you.
He'll be in the paper next. Say something, he'll be in the paper next.
Cut him off.
All right, so we'll pick up where we left off, which I believe was item number 12. The planning board composition.
Mayor Baker, commissioners, welcome new commissioners, Ritchie and Barnhill. Item number 12 is an opportunity for the Board of Commissioners to discuss the composition of the planning board and also some potential future amendments regarding the planning board composition in the future. Very briefly, you have a 6-member planning board. 5 of those are appointed by this body, the Cape Carteret Board of Commissioners. 1 is appointed by the county commissioners to represent the extraterritorial jurisdiction. You have a total of 3 seats that are appointed by this board that will come up in February of this year. Also, the term of our ETJ representative, Mrs. Paxton Holtz, comes up in March of 2024. So you will be asked to appoint individuals for 3 of those 6 seats in February, or perhaps as soon as you'd like. And the county commissioners would be responsible for appointing a member to the extraterritorial jurisdiction seat. So I wanted to just have a chance for the board to discuss how you'd like to go about making those appointments going forward. Associated with those, I won't go through all of the written materials. There are several items in the Unified Development Ordinance that speak to the planning board that I'd like the board to at least consider at some point in the future making some changes. Number one, our ordinance currently has the terms of the planning board members on staggered terms. I think that is helpful. However, the way that our appointments are made, 3 of those seats are made in February of a particular year. The others are made in May. The other 2 are made in May. And then your ETJ appointment is made in March. At some point in the future, I think it would be helpful for the Board of Commissioners to amend the UDO and pick a common month for those appointments in the future. I would suggest that maybe it should be January or February of a particular year to coincide shortly after the election of new commissioners. The terms of the planning board members are 3 years. I would like the board to consider whether that's the appropriate length of time. It might be more appropriate, for example, to set those terms at 4 years, maybe even 2 years, and still set those up on a staggered basis in the future. We also have a limit of 2 consecutive terms that one individual can serve on the planning board. You may want to think about whether that provision is necessary in the future, or conversely, if you'd like to subject other town positions to a limit on the number of consecutive terms. Currently, we allow 2 consecutive terms on the planning board. There is no one on the planning board currently that's facing the potential of reaching that limit at this point in time. Additionally, there's language that talks about the extraterritorial jurisdiction representation. We have a really unique situation in Cape Carteret. State statutes require that there be a representative from the extraterritorial jurisdiction on your planning board and on your board of adjustment. It says it has to be a resident of that area. And in Cape Carteret, we have just 4 parcels that comprise our extraterritorial jurisdiction. 2 of those are owned by the federal and state government. 2 of them are vacant, undeveloped parcels. And there are no residents there currently. So we have 1 individual who's appointed by the county commissioners, but does not live in that area. So there's potential for a conflict with the statutes and with the town ordinances going forward. One thing the board may want to consider, if that individual wants to continue to serve, and if the board wants to appoint that individual, you might want to consider perhaps appointing that individual to one of the regular slots on the planning board until we can make the appropriate adjustments to this ordinance going forward. There are a few other things in here that have to do with extraterritorial jurisdiction. There is language in our ordinance that says essentially that person can only vote on matters that affect the extraterritorial jurisdiction. And that often leads to some confusion at the planning board level as far as what items that individual is allowed to participate in. For example, ordinance amendments that affect the entire town and the ETJ, that individual can vote on those things. If it's a particular project that occurs, say, on Highway 24, the ETJ member would not be able to vote on that because that's in the entire town, not impacting the ETJ. So I think it would be easier and simpler for the town going forward to perhaps change that so that the ETJ member can vote on all matters. That's clearly a policy decision for the Board of Commissioners. I just wanted to illustrate for you that that sometimes gets a little bit confusing as far as what that individual can participate in the discussions and vote on. So these are things that I'm not asking the board to consider tonight. And in fact, you have a very specific process we have to go through. Any ordinance amendments to the UDO have to go to the planning board for a recommendation, then to the Board of Commissioners. There's a requirement for a public hearing on those items. But I would like the board at some point in the future to consider making those changes. Tonight, I'm really just looking for any direction that you may have on those potential amendments to the UDO going forward. If you're interested in pursuing those, we'll get to work on those and bring them back to you at a future meeting. Otherwise, tonight, I think the board really has a few different options for making these appointments to the planning board. Again, there are 3 terms that are up in February of 2024. So I think one option is that you could certainly advertise for applicants for those slots and make those appointments either at your January or February board meeting. Those individuals would then be seated for the February planning board meeting. You certainly could consider the currently serving planning board members if there are any of those individuals that would like to be reappointed. We also still have a total of 4 applicants from the last round that just applied a couple months ago and may still be interested in serving. You may want to consider those individuals also. And then finally, you can certainly just identify individuals in the community that you think would make good planning board members, and you could appoint those individuals as early as tonight if you'd like, or certainly at the January or the February meeting. I would ask you to make those appointments certainly no later than the February meeting. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Look forward to your discussion. And if there's any direction on those UDO amendments, I sure would appreciate your feedback. Thank you.
All right, questions or comments?
Mayor Baker, I'd like to put a motion before the board.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to table any discussions on amending the UDO in regard to the planning board, and tonight to vote on 3 members to the planning board to fill the vacancies that will expire February 24th.
Second.
Okay. Did you second? Okay. All right, all in favor? Opposed? All righty, so we've tabled everything for the UDO discussion, but we're going to vote on 3 members tonight.
Yes.
My suggestion would be do 1 member at a time as opposed to doing all 3 in one motion. And that way,
Okay.
if someone fails, it doesn't fail the whole group, right?
So you want a motion on each candidate or?
That's correct. If someone wants to make a motion to approve a candidate, then just start with that one, we'll vote on that one, and then after that vote, go to the
Okay,
next one.
I'll make a motion to seat Minnie Truax on the planning board.
Second.
Got a first and a second. All in favor? All opposed? All right, is Minnie here? Congratulations, Minnie.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Commissioner Martin.
Mayor Baker, I'd like to make a motion to seat Paxton Holtz on the planning board as a voting member.
Second.
I'll second.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Okay, so
I'll second.
you won.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, all opposed?
Mayor Baker, I would like to appoint Jeremy Granger to the planning board.
Second.
Okay, first and second. All in favor? All opposed? All right, Jeremy still here? No?
No,
He's not here.
Jeremy's.
I thought I saw him earlier. Okay.
Yeah, he had a death.
Yeah, I was sorry. I heard the his sister-in-law, Mrs. Granger, was in a bad accident, passed away. All right, so we have Minnie Truax, Paxton Holt, and Jeremy Granger as the 3 new planning board members.
We will reach out to those 3 individuals and set them up with an orientation prior to their meeting in February. Thank you.
All right, next up is an ordinance amending Chapter 92 of Fire Prevention of the Code of Ordinances to clarify street number regulations.
Mayor Baker, Commissioners, this is a simple ordinance amendment. You may recall that at your October 9th meeting, the Board of Commissioners approved amendments regarding street numbering. We moved that to Chapter 92 of the Code of Ordinances. Following the board's decision on October the 9th, the Planning Board engaged some additional discussion about the 911 reflective signs. There's a picture in your packet of those, basically those green reflective signs that a lot of people put on their mailboxes. The Planning Board just wanted to clarify that those signs can be utilized. They're not required, but they can be utilized, and if they are utilized, that they should be on the same side of the street as the house. There was some concern expressed by the Planning Board that sometimes the mailboxes are on the opposite side of the street. They just wanted the sign identifying the house number to be on the same side of the street. Again, it's not required, but if the person chooses to, that would be the amendment that's presented for your consideration tonight.
Any questions or discussion? Do we have a motion?
What is this gaining us?
I'm sorry, what?
What is this gaining us, adding this ordinance?
Yeah, it really is not anything substantive, I don't think. It really just clarifies. We've had something along these lines in the ordinance for several years. You all amended that a couple of months ago. This is just further clarification, just saying it has to be on the same side of the street. So it doesn't change anything in a substantive way.
Is the fire marshal still here?
Yes, sir.
Does it help you with
It
the
does.
numbers, even with all the GPS equipment you have on? Because I've having two mothers and two fathers in the last 5-6 years where you've been to our houses multiple times. We never had the numbers, but you always seem to end up in the driveway. And I guess my other question is if we do this, who's responsible for purchasing the metal sign? Or is that something that the fire department's going to supply the homeowner?
So the responsibility for purchasing the sign and installing the sign would fall on the homeowner. It's not something that the town would do or would require. The fire department does have a program that I'm sure Mr. Penrod would be happy to explain, but folks can buy those from the fire department. I think they'll go out and install them for them, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct. Okay. Come to the fire department and have their address made. When I came to the planning board, one of the things that we supported was, we do have GPS, we have active 911. In the last couple of months, those things have been down quite a bit. So a lot of times when we leave the station, we're familiar with where the streets are, but we have to look for those addresses. And when you have a cluster of mailboxes, we know that address is somewhere close, but if somebody's not outside, it delays us a little bit. So it's a positive thing for us.
Okay, Sean. My question is, do we honestly believe that every homeowner in the town is going to rush right out and buy a post and a reflective sign? If so, if not, how are we going to enforce that?
Yeah, so again, it is not a requirement for someone to have the sign, and they've been around for many, many years, and so I would certainly not expect a big rush on these signs, although I think they're a helpful tool for public safety personnel. There's not really an enforcement component to it per se. I think really in reality what would happen, hopefully the fire department would work cooperatively with us when they sell one of these signs and help the person install it on the right side of the road. If we come across one that we know is not installed on the right side of the road, we just simply would contact the person and ask them to move it. I would expect that to be a pretty simple process.
Well, if it's going into the code of ordinances, it should be you say it's not a requirement, but yet we're here to vote for it to be included in the ordinances?
Yeah, so it's not a requirement, and there's no permit necessary for something like this. The ordinance deals with the placement of the sign. So it says if you are going to have one of these signs, it needs to be this size and it needs to be on this side of the road. So, and it's something that typically someone would probably purchase and install long after the house is constructed. So if we got a complaint about one of these things, or if the public safety personnel identified it in the wrong location, we would just simply reach out to the homeowner and ask them to move it. I would expect that most folks would be cooperative.
So it's similar to the campaign sign ordinance.
It's kind of like that, yeah. There's no permit necessary. It's just a matter of what size it is and where you place it.
Any more questions? All right, you have a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt the ordinance.
All right. Motion to adopt, and have a second. So I guess we just let this die.
Okay, thank you.
Next up is discussion of the Second boat ramp pass availability for town residents and property owners.
Mayor Baker, Commissioners, as expected, the boat ramp pass program remains very popular. I included some data in the write-up to give you the current update as of today. So far, we've issued a total of 265 passes. So the cap is 285, so there are 20 passes left as of today. To date, we've sold 177 first passes to Cape Carteret residents and property owners. We've sold 23 second passes. And as of today, we've sold 65 passes to residents of the nearby towns for a grand total of right at 265 right now. One of the issues that we've heard some concerns about is that this year, with the pass being placed on a sticker being placed on the windshield of the vehicle, some individuals have expressed concern that they may need to use the vehicle that has the sticker on it for some other purpose. Perhaps their spouse or their child may be using the vehicle and it wouldn't be available for them to take the trailer to the ramp. Perhaps the vehicle's in the shop for repairs. And so we had requests from some Cape Carteret residents and property owners to have a second pass. And so historically, the town has only issued the second pass to Cape Carteret residents and property owners if they had a second boat. And so we maintained that policy for this year's sales. I would say we've probably had maybe up to a dozen people who've expressed concerns about that and would like to get a second pass. I know that some of you have probably heard that concern from some of your constituents as well. If that is an issue that you'd like to address, I would offer the following solution to that. I would just simply suggest that the second passes, which again are only issued to Cape Carteret residents and property owners, we don't make those available for anyone else. Just those second passes, if you're so inclined, grant authorization for us to issue the second pass to any Cape Carteret resident and property owner, but not count that against the cap. And so that will theoretically address that concern for those Cape Carteret property owners. It would result in a little bit of additional revenue for the town, and I don't think it would place any additional pressure on the facility because theoretically they still have one boat. They're only going to be dropping one boat off at a time. So to me, that's the simplest solution to that concern. I'm certainly open to whatever ideas or suggestions you have for other solutions, or you may not believe it's a concern that's worth addressing right now. But I wanted to make sure that I shared that concern with you and brought you a solution to it if you're so inclined. So I welcome whatever direction you want to provide. Yes, sir.
Can we go back to tagging the specific trailer that's going to tow the boat rather than the vehicle? And the only reason I ask that is there are certain people in town that have a business, and I would rather have the trailer be the determining factor rather than the vehicle, because the vehicle can drag any trailer to the boat ramp. I would like to see all the trailers that go to the boat ramp have the sticker on it.
I think that's certainly an option for next year. I don't think there's any way to implement it this year.
I'm just saying, is that about?
No, I think that's certainly something you could consider for next year, but the board's specific direction for this year was to switch to windshield stickers. So you want to talk with your colleagues about that. I think either approach works fine. I do know that the windshield sticker option, ironically, it allows people to save $50, right? If you're someone who has two boats, you really don't need two stickers anymore. You really just need one, so you can pull your two trailers with the same vehicle if you wanted. Ironically, this problem is kind of the opposite of that. The police department indicates it's a little easier to enforce it on the windshield sticker, but we certainly can make that change back if that's the board's direction going forward. Clearly not for 2024.
Well, I agree with Commissioner Ritchie. It's obvious this is not going to work out with the sticker on the windshield. What started as lowering the capacity of that facility has turned out to be a huge debacle for this town. It appears on our agenda month after month after month, tweak. So I think I have no problem with allowing the second sticker for this year, but this board, before we start selling passes next year, we need to have a serious meeting and hash this out once and for all. It's just been a mess, in my opinion. So I'm not blaming anybody. I voted for the sticker too, but it's obvious it's not going to work. So I will make a motion, if anybody else doesn't have anything to say about it, to allow these second stickers at your discretion to the people in the town, and to get us through this year anyway.
And those second stickers would not count toward the cap?
That's correct.
Okay.
I'll second that.
I see no other option right now.
Okay.
All right, and you're second. All right, all in favor? All opposed?
Hold on just a second. So the motion is that we're going to allow at the town manager's discretion to issue passes. Would they still pay for those passes?
The recommendation I would have for you is that the second pass would only be issued to a Cape Carteret resident or property owner. They would pay the $50 fee that we charge for all second passes, but that the second passes not count toward the cap of $285.
Okay.
And
that's my motion.
okay.
All right.
All right, so it's been seconded.
Seconded.
Now I understand it.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Hey, all in favor again, I'm sorry, guys.
All in favor?
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
All right, next up is potential multi-use path grant application for the NC 24 Yopon Drive to Bayshore Drive.
Mayor Baker, Commissioners, those of you who are returning, you may recall we had some conversations earlier this year about possibly pursuing a bicycle path or perhaps a sidewalk along the south side of Highway 24 to essentially link Old Cape Carteret with the Bayshore Park area. Presented for the board's discussion tonight is the possibility of applying for federal grant funds through the NCDOT for the construction of an approximately 1 mile, 10-foot wide asphalt multi-use path along the south side of Highway 24 between Yopon Drive and Bayshore Drive. And you've got a map on the screen. I think y'all are probably familiar with this area. This federal grant program is called the Carbon Reduction Program. They do typically provide funding for multi-use path construction. And I think the town would be able to put together a competitive application for these grant funds. Put forth two different options in the package for you. One option is just simply the path itself, and it's in the yellow area highlighted on the map. It would basically run along Highway 24 in front of the Cape Point subdivision. We'd cross over Deer Creek in this area here, and then continue along Highway 24 up to Country Club Point and then into the Bayshore area. It would connect with existing sidewalks on Highway 24 west of Yopon, and it would provide a safe pedestrian and bicycle connection to Old Cape Carteret. It also gets folks to the signalized intersections at Anita Fort and also at Manatee and Golf and Dolphin Drive. For just the path itself, the total estimated cost of that project is a total of $832,000. It is an 80% federal grant. It's provided on a reimbursement basis. So the town would be asking for approximately $666,000. There's a $166,000 local match required for that project. I will say that I think the cost estimates are on the conservative side. I hope that the ultimate project cost would not be quite that high, but we've got certain guidelines that we'd have to follow with the grant application, and those guidelines are provided by NCDOT. It's your typical 10-foot wide asphalt path in that area. The other alternative that we have for your consideration would be the exact same project, but it would install pedestrian signals at these three signalized locations: Taylor and Ocean Road, Anita Fort, and then Manatee and Golf and Dolphin Drive. Here are those current intersections. We've got a pedestrian signal here at Anita Ford, but essentially these additional pedestrian improvements add another $125 of cost to the project, and it would increase the total costs of the project to approximately $970,000. And in that particular case, it is a local match of $194,000, and we would be asking for $794,000 in grant funds. I think that the project, in whichever variation you might select, would be very beneficial for the town, would certainly improve pedestrian and bicycle opportunities. Depending on the board's policy direction, you may also be able to accommodate golf carts on this path in the future. That's probably a more significant policy discussion for the board at a later date. But at this point, we don't see anything that would prevent that from happening. It does provide that safe connection. I think it also creates a better linkage among the different neighborhoods in Cape Carteret. We've got the Star Hill area, we've got the Bayshore area, we've got the Old Cape Carteret area, got the main commercial area. They're all separated to a degree by geography, by a large 5-lane road, by Deer Creek, by busy traffic volumes on those roads. So in my mind, it's as much about connecting the community and creating a more connected community psychologically as well as physically, and having those bicycle path and sidewalk options available. The grant program, again, I think we would be able to put together a competitive application. They take applications on a quarterly basis, and the next round of applications is due by the end of December. I realize that's pretty quick, so if that's something you're not comfortable with, I completely understand that. The next quarter would end at the end of March, and those applications would be due at that time. If you are interested in pursuing this, we could put together an application really for any of these quarterly application deadlines. They receive them on a rolling basis. They make the awards on a rolling basis. If the town was fortunate enough to receive a grant through this program, I would imagine it would probably be constructed over the course of the next 2 fiscal years, perhaps even a little longer. So that local match of either $166,000 or $194,000, that's a big number. And so that's probably the key discussion point for you all. I would imagine that we would provide that local match over the course of 2 fiscal years going forward. So you're looking at really anywhere from $83,000 to almost $100,000 each of those 2 years. I suspect that if we did receive the grant, we would be able to be in a position to design the project next fiscal year, and it's probably going to take longer than I would like to secure the permits and the design approvals from DOT. So you probably wouldn't start construction until the following fiscal year would be my guess. Obviously, we'd be trying to do it as quickly as we could. A couple of ideas for you regarding the local match. Again, it's a big number and something that you need to think carefully about. I think the town probably, with diligent work, can come up with a responsible financing plan for it. A couple of things to think about. One is we are expecting significant additional investment income with the reinvestment of town funds and a couple of new vehicles that we expect to earn about 5% annually, obviously as long as interest rates stay in that general range. That's something that's going to be available for this board to decide how you want to use those funds going forward. You may allocate a significant portion of that for this project if that's important to you. We are still receiving special motor vehicle tax revenues. That's the $5 charge on every vehicle registered in Cape Carteret. That generates about $15,000 annually. Obviously, that's not $80,000 to $100,000, but obviously it's a source of money that could go toward that. You may even think about some sort of short-term financing instrument. You may want us to look at other general fund budget adjustments to come up with the funds for this. You may want to consider the fund balance going forward. I certainly wouldn't expect you to figure that out tonight or even at the time that we might apply for the grant. But I think that there's a way to do it and come up with a responsible plan over the next couple of budget years. So tonight, really, all I wanted to do was introduce it to you, get your initial feedback. If you say to me, wow, this is great, we really want to do this, we'll figure out the money, submit the application as soon as possible, we can do that. And we can get it in by the end of this month. More likely, I suspect that you may say, well, we kind of like the project, but we need to spend some more time thinking about how to pay for this. Let's consider it during the budget process. Completely reasonable position to take also, and we can work on that during the budget process. Like I said, the next round of applications would be due basically at the end of March. Then there's additional quarters after that till the money runs out. And I don't know, how long it'll be there, but you've got some time, I guess, is my basic point. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Look forward to your feedback.
Frank, I think this is something that it'd be great to connect everything with, but I'm going to end up in the camp that says we need to have our budget workshop and figure out what our priorities are and where that money needs to come from before we go down this road.
Understood.
But if you apply at the end of December, and let's say you get it, I don't know when the notification, is there any obligation to accept it, do it? What I'm saying is if we applied in December and we got it, at that point, we could say if we wanted to or didn't want to go through with it. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. The board certainly will always have that discretion. If we're awarded a grant, you certainly can turn the grant down. I wouldn't recommend that, but it is an option available to you. And I think whether we applied now or whether we applied 3 or 4 months from now or whether we applied next year, certainly not going to impact the current year budget. So it's really part of your budget discussions for next year and beyond. So, but technically you could deny that, you could turn the grant down. I wouldn't want that to be the case because I just don't want to, I guess, have that reputation, so to speak.
Yeah, future. That would affect future grants, wouldn't it?
Potentially.
Correct.
That's what I thought.
I'm sorry, sir.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I've always recommended to boards that unless you intend to go forward with the project, don't apply for it because of that very issue. If you apply for it, get it, you reject it, then next time when you really want it, you may not be as favorable of a position as you were this time.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Morgan. This is potentially it's going to be a huge budget impact. So I'd push it into the budget meetings and discuss it then, see where we stand with our budget. I personally would not be in favor of financing it. Not to get too deep in anything here, but I think the using the MOTV funds and the investment income would be the way that I would go if we decide to go forward with. But I will say this is a very popular plan. It's been on the wish list for decades, probably. So I'll be looking forward to discussing it during the budget process, early on in the budget process.
Okay. Any other thoughts or so? I'll leave that up to you, Mr. Mayor.
You're getting ready to speak.
I'm sorry?
Well, what you got? Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, well, on this subject, the original scope of the project, there was a lot of concern back in the very beginning days of this thing of the connecting Bay Shore to the rest of the thing. And the complaint was, how do they get there? And the original plan was to a 3 to 5 foot sidewalk going down there to connect them to the other 3. That would be significantly cheaper than what is being proposed.
And I think that's an option available to the board too. If this is a priority to you, but you think a sidewalk is better, I think we certainly could adjust the grant application. Both, I think, would be competitive. The reason that we went with the multi-use path is just because it's a wider facility. At least gives you the option to consider golf carts in the future, whereas you probably, I don't think you'd want to do that on sidewalks, but either approach would work.
Please make sure that we don't forget to consider that come January.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with waiting until we start budget discussions.
I got one question. When we first started discussing multi-use path all the way around, we started at 10 feet. And I can't remember if it was a CAMA issue or a stormwater issue we had or cost issue. We went from 10 to what we have now, which I think is either 5 or 6 feet currently.
In what location?
Our multi-use path that we are looking to finish now,
Guardrail trail.
the trail.
Yeah, so, well, the asphalt segments are 10-foot wide,
Okay.
all of those. There are some concrete sidewalk segments in the main commercial area on 24 and then running down in front of the White Oak Elementary School that are, I'm not sure what width they are, but it's probably 5 or 6 feet, somewhere in that range. But all the asphalt segments are 10-foot wide. And the part that we're hopefully going to bid on soon will be 10-foot wide as well.
You gave us one final question. You gave us a price on the path only. Did that include the boardwalk across Deer Creek? Schoolhouse Creek?
I believe so, yeah. We've included some funding in there. We've got a relatively generous number on the cost per linear foot, and then we have some other riprap for that area there. In reality, it may be a combination of riprap and that asphalt path. I think most likely it's going to involve some wooden boardwalk, but that's factored into the numbers.
Because you know those boardwalks are not 10-foot wide. The hog slat they use, I think it's 10 foot.
I think it's 8 foot.
So it'll narrow down, I'm assuming.
Yeah. But the intent would be for a 10-foot wide path. If we need to make those kind of minor adjustments, I think we can. So.
Yeah, I'm like Commissioner Morgan said, be sure and remind us about the options on the different widths, because it makes no sense to me to start with a 10 foot and then narrow down the 4 foot across the water there.
Yeah, so typically on the multi-use paths, the state standard, the typical standard is a 10-foot wide path. When you get into some of the concrete sidewalks, it's anywhere from 4 to 6 feet, typically speaking.
So we can name it a pedestrian sidewalk then?
Yeah, you certainly can,
Okay.
yeah. I think either approach is viable and would be competitive for the grant funds. So if you decided you wanted something narrower.
The price you gave us, is it for a 10-foot wide or?
It's for 10-foot wide.
So we could potentially save a large sum of money if we went downsize to a 4-foot pedestrian path.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
One question, and I guess this is for you, Ryan. How wide is it from the back of the guardrail to the creek now?
On the north side of 24?
On the north side of 24,
Yeah,
where we have multiple fishermen from
Yeah,
October
it's around-
to March fishing there.
Right. From the guardrail, I'd say it's a 4-foot wide hog slot. You got the guardrail. I'd say give or take.
Sorry,
about 10 feet
let's
to
do the
guardrail.
south side, where the guys fish.
Oh, yeah. It's tight.
Yeah.
It is tight there.
Yeah.
I know there's some vegetation there. I'm not sure what the plan would incorporate as far as removing some vegetation and stuff to get a level surface, but you probably got a good, it's tight. I don't know the exact number. I'd have to put a
Okay.
on it.
If we apply for the grant, can we somehow look at or explore the opportunity to allow our citizens and people that fish here all the time access, or have some sort of fishing platform, possibly? Just asking, Frank.
No, I think absolutely you could. Yeah, I think that would be a nice feature to have for people to be able to enjoy the water there. I think it is very tight along the creek, and so that's why I'm just not quite sure yet whether we can fit the whole path or sidewalk there. So I'm pretty sure there's going to be some sort of boardwalk feature, and it'd be nice to have little pop-outs, for example, like you're suggesting. So I think you could certainly incorporate that if that's your desire.
Okay.
All right, so I believe the consensus is to wait until budget time and we'll revisit. Okay. All right, next up is the items we moved. So we're going to have the planning board representative and a microphone. You still got the microphone over there? One that works? Just for a moment. Okay.
Okay, good evening. I don't know if they're still here, but I wanted to welcome the two new sitting commissioners. And also, my many thanks to Don Miller, who served here as a commissioner for 8 years, but I was on the committee that hired him as our police chief when we stole him away from Morehead City many, many years ago. So I've known him for a long time, and I thank him, and also Jeff Waters. Generally, the planning board speaks earlier in the meeting, and it changed here suddenly. I had some comment on the those reflective signs. That was a big fiasco when they first came, because a Boy Scout came with the project and for his Eagle Scout, and he wanted to put these things in, and there was so much enthusiasm to get the project done that we went ahead. But the thing we didn't do is 95% of these signs are on mailboxes, and when the mailbox is on the other side of the street from where your house is, it doesn't identify where the house is. And that's the problem that we have, and the ordinance was just to prevent that from getting worse than it already is. But anyway, let me move on to the next topic. In October, we talked about mailboxes, and this was the concrete structured brick mailboxes. That there's about a dozen, maybe 15 of them in the town. And we reported to you that we had a 2-2 tie on a motion, so the motion didn't pass to prohibit those mailboxes. In the November meeting, it was reintroduced by one of the members that wasn't in the previous meeting, and I tabled it because I didn't want to have another vote after the one we had. So we're going to bring it up again one more time when we have a full board there tomorrow night. So that issue will be up. And basically what the issue is our roads, for the most part, are 20, but there's a lot of on the smaller roads, 18 foot wide. If you take a pickup truck, the mirror to mirror, outside of the mirror to mirror is about 8 feet. So there's very little room for to pass each other with 2 trucks or boat trailers that are even wider. And the police gave us a report, and they say it's not that common, but they average about 2 to 5 mailboxes getting hit per year in the town. And the most recent one was 3 mailboxes got taken down in Quailwood. So the idea here was to the U.S. Postal Service does not allow this. They don't recommend this, but it's not a U.S. postal regulation. It's their guidelines, is they want flexible mailboxes. So we'll have something for you to look at the January meeting. The final item that I want to mention is we spent another considerable amount of time discussing House Bill 409, and this is what is termed the Affordable Housing Act. And basically what it does is the letter that we're proposing recommends that something else be done. The board is not in opposition to affordable housing, but it's a one-size-fits-all. So they take away the municipality's right to regulate density. They allow one or more accessory housing living quarters on a single property. And as you know, most of this town, since 1970, when we enacted an ordinance, was single-family developments. There's a few that are multi-family. So anyway, the problem we have, and it was reviewed and commented and added to by the Coastal Federation, and the letter endorses the position of the League of Municipalities, which was objected to the fact that it took away something that had always been a town municipality's right to regulate their density. It says they can't do that anymore. So that was the basic issue, and we're going to put the finishing touches on this in our meeting tomorrow night, and we'll have something for you in January. Any questions?
I got one.
Yes.
Didn't you vote down medical cottages when you sat on this board?
I'm sorry?
Didn't you vote down medical cottages on this board?
I'm sorry, John.
Medical cottages? Wasn't this addressed, Ms. Holt, several years ago with the planning board?
No, yes. It wasn't a medical cottage, so to speak. It was a accessory structure for mother-in-law apartment is what it was. And,
But the term was medical college cottage.
well, I don't recall the medical
Yeah,
cottage.
well, I do.
Well,
And I'm sure
I
Ms.
know,
Holtz
but
does too.
yes, the board, in fact, one of the cases went to Superior Court, and the position of the board, which was to oppose these accessory living structures on properties, it was upheld by the Superior Court. Any other questions?
Why draft a resolution for us to look at when the House has already passed the bill?
Well, they haven't gone through the Senate, Commissioner.
Well, 99% of the time when the House passes, Republicans.
Well, you're probably right on that, and we didn't get it till late in the process, and we only got the League of Municipalities' position on it, which is they were opposed to it, after it had been through the House. So, I can't answer why it happened.
All right, thank you, Mike. Next up is a consent agenda.
Motion to adopt consent agenda.
Okay, I have a second.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. All right. Town manager's report.
Several things in the written materials. Just want to highlight a few of the more significant ones. First of all, the staff is putting the finishing touches on the Santa Claus is Coming to Town event that we'll have next Monday and Tuesday. We will be escorting Santa through the residential neighborhoods of Cape Carteret on Monday night and on Tuesday night, generally from 6 to 8 p.m. On Monday night, we'll be going through Old Cape Carteret and Cape Point and Bayshore. And on Tuesday night, we're scheduled to go through Star Hill and Star Hill North and some Quailwood, the areas up in there. So hopefully this will go well and people will enjoy it. We wanted to try something different this year for Christmas, and hopefully it'll go well. Pleased to report that the Board of Elections has notified us that all Cape Carteret residents will now vote at the Western Park Community Center in the future. There was a small area of town that voted in BoC for the next election, which is the March 2024 primary election. Everyone in Cape Carteret will vote at the Western Park Community Center. So good news there. We received the permit from the U.S. Forest Service for the next segment of the Cape Carteret Trail. DOT is still reviewing the permit application. Hopefully we will receive that very soon. As soon as we receive that, we'll be going out for construction bids for the last roughly 1 mile segment. One thing I wanted to report to the board, we were supposed to close on the acquisition of the vacant 1 acre parcel at Taylor and Ocean Road in 58. We were supposed to close on that on November 30th. That's been delayed. However, we don't foresee any problems. We now expect to close before Christmas on that parcel. So hopefully everything will come together and we will solicit construction bids, I hope, sometime after the first of the year and get to construction. Along the lines of budget, I have suggested a budget planning workshop with the board for Friday, February the 23rd at 9 o'clock. If that date is acceptable to you, I'd like to plan for that to really bring you the early budget projections. We'll give you an update on where we stand for the current fiscal year, give you the early budget projection for next fiscal year, and then talk to you about what your priorities are, including some of the bigger picture items, such as future bike paths and some other things that we've talked about in the past. So if that date works for you, we will plan on that. It'll be right here in this room. I would expect to spend probably 4 or 5 hours at that meeting. It is important to me that we have all 6 of you present for that for the entire time. In my mind, it's one of the more important things that this board and your staff does each year, a chance for you all to communicate your priorities. Ideally, we will listen well and we'll be able to devise a budget that enables you to address your priorities and bring the budget back to you in May for further discussion and consideration. So if that date works, great, please let me know. If that doesn't, we certainly can pick another date. That was the date I thought might have the best chance of being successful. So the only other thing to mention, planning board meeting was supposed to be next Tuesday, the 19th. We moved it to tomorrow night, the 12th, because of Christmas travel plans. So lots of other things in here. If you have questions about any of these items, I'm happy to answer them. If you have questions about anything else related to the town. One other thing I just saw in my notes, we are the projects, the stormwater projects on BoC Sound Drive and Neptune Court are basically done. The subcontractor for Sunland was supposed to start paving tomorrow. I think that's probably going to be pushed back to Wednesday or Thursday, but we'll get the paving done soon and those projects will be completely finished. Very pleased with both of them at this point so far. So thanks.
Everything seemed to work last night over there, so I rode by there. Everything was great. So
yeah, we got some rain for sure.
Sure did.
We got 5 inches.
Any questions for Frank?
Yeah, Frank. I'm having a hard time looking at the financial statement since it's changed a lot since Sandy was here. How much do we have in our disaster relief fund to date? Hurricane, disaster, whatever the label is.
Yeah, so the total amount that you have is $2.65 million right now, and your total general fund balance is right around 2.3 as of June 30th. Technically, all that money is available for a disaster if necessary. We have not been splitting it out in the same way that maybe you did in the past. There were probably 7 or 8 different categories. And really, this, I think, is a simpler, clearer way to explain that. But I think the bottom line answer to your question is if we have an emergency tomorrow, you've got about 2.3 million available
That's
to
not
you.
my
So,
question.
understood.
The previous board adopted this shortly after Florence, set aside a certain amount of money, and I think the clerk here probably remembers that, in a designated fund can only be touched with a supermajority vote. Remember that, Brett?
Vaguely.
I will ask this. I will ask you and the clerk to come up with minutes pertaining to that and get back to this board the next meeting.
I'll be happy to get you whatever information you need. And
That fund was set aside because we learned a valuable lesson when Hurricane Florence hit. We were within 3 weeks of payroll is all we had. We said never again. And we have been fiscally responsible for 5 years now. I want to know how much money we got in that fund. I don't want it jumbled in with the general fund. I want it to see how much money's in that fund.
yeah, so since I was not here when that was the practice, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding your question correctly. So there's a certain percentage of the fund balance.
And a certain percentage every year goes into that, supposedly goes in that fund.
Okay. So
and I think Heather, I know Heather was the clerk then. I'm pretty sure she was. Well, I have no problem finding that.
That fund was started by Thurman Upchurch the night before that one died right there.
That fund was drained by a board
I know.
that bought a fleet of police cars with the money.
I know.
Lessons learned. We created that fund, and I want to know how much is in it.
yeah. So we certainly can get you that information. And what I would suggest to you is, in my view of managing the town, the entire fund balance is your emergency disaster fund. But we can separate it out in whichever way the board would like to separate it. And that's perfectly fine. But what I would like to do is maybe talk about this a little bit more with the whole budget planning thing and make sure that we're giving you what you want, if that's all right.
That amount of money needs to be separate. It always has been until you arrived. I don't know what's happened during the transition between finance directors. In the past, it's always been a reserve fund. It named disaster relief, hurricane relief, whatever we named it. I don't remember. But it had a significant amount of money in it a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Thurman Upchurch labeled it Hurricane Relief Fund was the original.
Yeah, but this was a different fund.
I understand.
Yeah, understood. A couple of things, hopefully to give you some comfort, and I'll get you whatever information you'd like. We'll look through the minutes. Number one, I can assure you that number is larger now than it ever was before. So please
Well, I
feel,
don't see it with my eyes.
yeah,
I'm
please,
looking.
please feel rest assured that that number is larger than it is right now.
This is all I see.
Yeah, understood.
This is all we've gotten for months and months and months and months.
Yeah, so
We cannot perform budgetary meetings or anything without knowing all of this.
I will prepare
It's great to have a general fund with that much money in it, but I want to see in between. I want to see what's in the general fund.
The second thing, again, what I would say to you, hopefully, my goal is to give you some greater comfort. I view the entire amount as your emergency disaster relief fund. So
I was on the board that approved that and made it. We're kind of in violation here. It was voted on to require a supermajority vote to do anything with those funds. Now, as far as I can tell, I don't see them.
I will get you the requested information.
Thank you.
More questions for Frank? Regarding the February 21st date, is everybody okay with that for the budget? February 23rd, 9 o'clock. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
We can go ahead and pencil in. All right, next up is commissioner reports. We'll start with Commissioner Martin.
Yeah, I want to welcome the new commissioners to the board. I think they ran a good, honest campaign. I know they worked very hard to win the votes from the people, and deservingly so. They won their elections. I want to congratulate them. I wanted to also just make one little comment through no fault of anybody's, but I think we can do a little bit better with our Christmas decorations next year. In comparison to some other towns, I think we can do a little better. Where there's nothing at the Cape Carteret sign that we've had years past. We've had lighting out there. I think that's something we can do better next year. Would like to see it done better anyway. And that's all I have.
Yeah, I just wanted to welcome our new commissioners and our returning commissioner, and I wanted to formally thank our former commissioners that just left the board for all the work they put in.
All right. John?
Frank, you and I have spoken about this, but I would really like to emphasize meeting with the stakeholders as soon as humanly possible so that we can address the deficits in our land use plan and our UDO. I feel it's very important to listen to our customers that will dictate the way our town's going to grow. And we are foolish to think that if we don't listen to them, that we can enforce our will on them. If we don't listen to what they want, our town is dead in the water. Because God forbid, Paxton, don't take this the wrong way, if something tragic were to happen to one of the major owners, we could be in for whatever we get. And that's not what I want to see for our town. I want our town to have a plan of action to move forward and grow responsibly. So if you could make that happen like we spoke about earlier, thank you. And the other thing is I want to thank Jeff and Don for their hard work. I want to say congratulations to Cameron and to Courtney. Job well done. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm tickled that you guys got the precinct boundaries changed because that was one of the things that we kept hearing from the voters. They were not real happy with that, so they will be thrilled. And I'd like to express my gratitude and appreciation to my family and friends and neighbors and citizens of Cape Carteret who put their trust in me and voted for me. And I got the most votes. And also, it was a very humbling experience, and it wouldn't have happened without a lot of you in this room. And I look forward to working with all the commissioners and the town employees to manage our town. So it's going to be fun. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome John and Courtney. I feel bad for Courtney because I'm a lefty, so I tend to like sprawl on this countertop here. But thank you to the citizens for putting me back up here. I really appreciate that. And look forward to the next couple of years, for me at least, the next couple of years of working with you guys and move forward.
And I echo congratulations, guys. And congratulations to those who were just put on the planning board. Everybody gets what they ask for, so be careful. But appreciate you there again. To donate your time to the town is a very selfless thing. Very glad we have that. It makes little towns run so much smoother. With that, we need to go into a closed session. So I'm going to entertain a motion to come out of regular session and go into that closed session.
I'll make that motion.
Second? All in favor? All right. Thanks everybody for coming. Sure appreciate it.
Well, yeah.
Remind me.
This conference will now be recorded.
That's my husband.
That's fun.
All righty. We are back. Our regular session. Next up was the town attorney who's going to update us on a matter of, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing.
That's right.
Let me put my glasses on. Thank you. Number 19 is the consent order regarding Lejeune Road Street End.
I'd like to make a motion to give consent for the attorney to sign that on our behalf.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? All righty. And then we have the added item, which was the, I'm sorry.
It passed correctly?
Yes, 5-0.
Okay. All right.
And next up is the item we added, which was the Girl Scout lease agreement.
So item 19A, and you have a copy at your places. It's a resolution authorizing a lease agreement with the Girl Scouts, North Carolina Coastal Pines for Unit B at 204 WB McLean Drive. It is a one-year lease with the Girl Scouts for them to expand into the center unit over there that was occupied by the police department. It is essentially the same size as the current space they're leasing in Unit A. So it's about 2,000 square feet. The proposed lease agreement that you have a copy of, it is essentially the exact same terms as the current lease agreement for the Girl Scouts. It's a monthly lease payment of $2,000 per month. The town does provide some utilities for all three units in that facility. I expect that the town would probably net around $20,000 per year, give or take, in rental income for that property. The proposal is for the board to consider a one-year lease agreement at this time. I would come back to you at your February meeting with a 7-month extension that would take the lease from March 1st of 2024 to September 30th of 2025. That would put the leases for all three units in that building on the same expiration date, September 30th of 2025. Again, the lease is pretty much identical to what they currently have, as well as the Cult Life lease. Couple things that you need to be aware of. One is that the Girl Scouts would be responsible for all improvements in the facility. They are planning to relocate some walls, do some painting, put down some new flooring, basically make it a nice new space. In the negotiations that I had with the Girl Scouts, I committed $5,000, and the lease includes $5,000 for the addition of another bathroom in that facility. As part of this, the town would retain the use of an existing bathroom and shower and an existing small room in the back of the building. Basically, the back door closest to the Cult Life facility. So the town would retain that. That'd be used for the police department until we figure out the long-term plan for the town going forward. The Girl Scouts have a quote that they're comfortable with for their renovations. They expect to really begin the renovations as soon as the board approves the lease and as soon as they can get the contractor in there to do the work. This calls for a March 1st start date for the lease. That's what they're hoping for. If somehow things move more quickly, we could potentially look at bumping that up, be a little bit of additional revenue. But with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Again, the reason we're doing it with a one-year lease agreement first is because you can do that without any public hearings or public notice requirements. Anything more than a year, you have to have a public hearing. We'll schedule that for the February meeting if the board decides to move forward. That's the exact same process that we used when they leased the space a couple years ago. So,
have you reviewed their plans for their modifications in the building?
yeah, I have.
Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it. They're essentially, I don't know if you've been in the building or if you recall it, but essentially what they're doing is eliminating the walls with the office toward the front that I believe was Chief McKinney's office at one point in time, and creating a larger open space there with the large open space that exists where their day room used to be. That's kind of the main wall modification component. The office that used to be Detective Hockman's office would become the new bathroom. It's right in the back of the building, literally 5 feet from the septic system right outside the door. So, and then it's a lot of cosmetic stuff. They did a nice job on the improvements in their space they're currently leasing. So,
I'll make a motion to enter a lease agreement as written.
Okay. Second.
I'll second it.
All in favor? All right, thank you.
thank you.
And now for the most important thing of the
Wait a minute, I
night.
got a question.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
If we've redone the planning board, why are we having a meeting tomorrow night? And if Mr. King is no longer the planning board chair because he was voted out this evening, why is he having that meeting?
Their terms end the end of January or February, I
No,
believe.
it ended tonight. We voted 3 new planning board members onto the planning board.
To start in February.
To start in February or start immediately is what I thought.
No, my recollection of the motion was that it was put before the board that starting in February that these 3 new individuals would start.
I did not hear starting in February.
That's when the term's up, isn't it?
That's where the terms are out, right?
One thing for the board to consider, there are basically 2 items on the agenda for the planning board tomorrow night. They are the items regarding this letter regarding House Bill 409. And then there's also another discussion of the mailbox issue. And those have both been discussed at least 2 previous meetings and maybe a little bit further. So that's what's on the agenda.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Do I have a second? All in favor? Thank you, gentlemen, lady.
Christmas.
Thank you all for being here tonight.
Yeah.
Let's eat.
We want to know what
The attorney can, she wants to know what happened to Lejeune Road.
Yes, I'll show you that. Consent order. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Pat.
Merry Christmas.
Will, do you have one? I've got one.
I've got one.
I'll give you a copy of the consent order, and I'll stay real quick to you.
Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well.
Property at the very end.
Oh, let's go.